Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back in time, way back, to a world that might make your modern day concerns about rising grocery prices or traffic jams feel like a walk in the park. We're going to explore what it was like to be a medieval miller, a job that, trust me, you probably wouldn't have wanted. Think about it, a job so universally despised, so utterly fraught with peril and public hatred, that you'll probably just want to curl up and appreciate your perfectly milled, store-bought flour. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from somewhere cozy, maybe a quiet suburb in Denver, Colorado, or a rustic cabin nestled deep in the forests of Maine, go ahead and drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you all are listening from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You were there, in a small village in medieval England, sometime in the 12th century. The air is thick with the scent of wood smoke, damp earth, and the distant, rhythmic creak of the watermill. Life here is hard, dictated by the seasons, the whims of the weather, and, most powerfully, the iron fist of the feudal system. You, a common villager, perhaps a peasant or a serf, are about to enter a world that will forever mark you as an outsider, a figure of suspicion, and often outright hatred. You are about to become a miller. Let's not sugarcoat it. Life under the feudal system sucked for most people. Imagine your daily existence, not in some abstract historical sense, but in the gritty, suffocating reality of constant labor and rigid social stratification. You are bound to the land, not free to leave, your entire life governed by the lord of the manor. Every aspect of your existence, from the crops you grow to the simple clothes you wear, is touched by the lord's authority. You feel it in the aching muscles of your back as you toil in the lord's fields, forced to work his land before your own. You feel it in the rough texture of your homespun tunic, aware that even this meager garment bears the invisible weight of rents and obligations owed to the Lord. The very air you breathe seems thick with the presence of the Lord's bailiff, his watchful eye ensuring your compliance, his word law within the manor. It's like living under a perpetual, low-grade fever of anxiety, knowing that at any moment, a new decree from the manor house could add yet another burden to your already strained shoulders. You see the Lord's fortified manor house looming over the village, a constant reminder of undeniable power, of a system that takes what it wants, when it wants, without apology. It's not just about the work, it's about the constant feeling of being perpetually indebted, perpetually subservient in your own home, under the watchful eye of a master who tolerates your existence only as long as you remain compliant and, crucially, productive. A common historical truth is that the feudal system in medieval Europe created a rigid social hierarchy where peasants and serfs were tied to the land and obligated to their lord, providing labor, goods, and military service in exchange for protection and the right to cultivate small plots of land. This system, while offering a semblance of order, often resulted in severe economic hardship and limited personal freedom for the vast majority of the population. Their lives were fundamentally about survival and obligation, with little room for personal ambition or upward mobility. You weren't really farming your own land, you were farming the Lord's land, and he let you live there. Imagine you are a small farmer, barely scraping by on your meager strips of land. Every grain of wheat you harvest, every bushel of oats you thresh, is subject to the Lord's demands. Before you can even think about baking bread for your family, you have to bring your precious grain to the Lord's mill. The mill, probably a sturdy stone building nestled by the river or a small stream, is a constant choke point, a funnel through which all your sustenance must pass. You might be carrying a sack of wheat, thinking about how you'll finally have some fresh bread tonight. But before you can grind it, you have to face the miller, who stands there, measuring, demanding, taking his cut. Sometimes it feels like they're taking more than their fair share. But what can you do? Argue that only invites trouble, a beating from the Lord's bailiff. or even worse, a forced contribution to the Lord's special fund. It's an irritating, daily reminder that you are not truly free, that your labor is ultimately for the benefit of the Lord, and by extension, the miller. It's like trying to run a small bakery, but a large corporation has a mandatory processing plant, and they decide how much of your flour they get to keep, even if they give you back less than you started with, and you know you're going to get squeezed. Now, let's talk about the specific obligations that really ground people down. Beyond working the Lord's domain, his personal land, and paying various rents in coin or kind, there was the banality system, or banalities in French, from which we get the word banal, meaning commonplace, as these monopolies were everywhere. This meant that villagers were legally obligated to use the Lord's specific facilities, his mill, his oven, his wine press, and pay a fee for their use. It wasn't just a convenient service, it was a forced monopoly. You couldn't just grind your own grain by hand, or use a neighbor's small hand quern even if it was cheaper or faster. You had to use the Lord's mill, and the miller was his agent, the enforcer of this hated monopoly. It's a complex web of feudal obligations, each one designed to extract as much wealth as possible from the peasants to fund the Lord's lifestyle, his knights, and his manor. You feel like a human ATM, constantly dispensing grain into the Lord's coffers, with the miller as the cash dispenser. Here's a little-known detail. Medieval mills were highly valuable assets for lords, often representing a significant portion of their income. They were expensive to build and maintain, requiring skilled labor and regular repairs to their complex machinery, such as the millstones, gears, and water wheels. This high investment meant that lords fiercely protected their milling monopolies, making the miller a crucial, albeit unpopular, figure in the manor's economy. So, you're not just serving the Lord, you're operating a very valuable, very powerful machine that generates a lot of revenue. It's like a modern-day government owning the only internet provider in town, and you're the only person allowed to operate it, and everyone has to use your service. And you know you're going to get squeezed, and everyone else knows you're the one doing the squeezing. This practice of banal milling meant that the actual miller you interacted with, the one who took your grain, started the grinding process, and then collected his payment, was often despised not just for representing the Lord's oppression, but for being an agent of pure, unadulterated greed. They were, in effect, profiting directly from your hardship, their wealth growing directly proportional to your struggle. It introduces a deeply personal, almost vengeful dimension to the common hatred for millers. It's like your landlord not just collecting rent, but owning the only grocery store you can use and then charging you an extra convenience fee for every item, just because they can. And you realize, with a sinking feeling, that the more food they sell, the more prosperous they become. And you can't go anywhere else. Historians still widely debate the precise historical evolution of banal mills, and whether their widespread adoption was primarily driven by economic efficiency and technological advancement, or by the Lord's desire for greater social control and revenue extraction from their peasantry, suggesting a complex interplay of factors contributing to their prevalence. But for the peasant living it, the perceived injustice was very real, and the potential for abuse was ever present. You live in a constant state of fear, wondering if today is the day they decide to arbitrarily increase their levy on your precious flour. You watch as the Lord's bailiff, accompanied by his well-armed guards, ensures that no one attempts to grind their own grain at home. They conduct searches, looking for hidden hand querns, the small personal grindstones that would allow you to avoid the mill. If caught, the penalties are severe fines, confiscation of property, or even physical punishment. This isn't just an administrative task, it's the enforcement of your future obligation to the miller. You stand there, a knot in your stomach, as they inspect your humble dwelling, making sure you don't possess the means to bypass the Lord's monopoly. It feels invasive, dehumanizing, like your very right to feed yourself is being controlled for profit. And you can't help but think, is grinding my own grain really a crime? Beyond the official fees collected by the miller known as mulcher, hey, there were always extra demands. Perhaps the Lord's household needs more flour than usual, and you're suddenly requested to provide a larger portion of your grain, ostensibly for the common good, but without any real compensation for the additional grinding or potential delays. Or maybe the mill needs repairs, Midane, and the Lord demands boon work from the villagers, forcing you to contribute your labor for free to maintain the very monopoly that oppresses you. These are the hidden obligations, the unofficial levies that further depleted your resources and reminded you of your utter powerlessness. It's like your city constantly holding spontaneous, expensive construction projects, and sending you the bill directly without asking, even though it's for their building, not yours, and you're just trying to save up for a new pair of shoes. But nope. Here comes another spontaneous mill repair. The very physical presence of the mill itself and its essential nature creates a drain on resources. You see the massive water wheel, the churning gears, the heavy millstones, all requiring constant maintenance and oversight. While the Lord funded the initial construction, the ongoing operational costs, and the miller's own livelihood were directly derived from the villagers' grain. You're not just paying for flour, you're physically supporting the apparatus of your own subjugation, often through forced labor or additional fees. It's a cruel irony, a constant indignity, and then there's the cultural dependence. In a world without widespread transportation or alternative food processing methods, the mill was absolutely essential for survival. Grain was the staple food, and grinding it into flour was a non-negotiable step in preparing it for consumption. This vital necessity meant that the miller held a unique and powerful position. You, as the miller, control access to the most basic necessity for life, turning you into a gatekeeper, and often an object of intense resentment. This deep-seated reliance adds another layer to the general antagonism, transforming every trip to the mill into a moment of vulnerability and potential exploitation. It's like being forced to rely on one internet service provider for all your communication needs, and they can arbitrarily slow down your speed or cut off your service whenever they feel like it. You just want to scream. Can't I just get some bread? You watch as the village, once a vibrant hub of community and cooperation, now feels tainted by the constant presence of the mill and its enforcer, the miller. The communal spirit, the simple camaraderie among neighbors, is often replaced by tense silence and furtive glances as villagers approach the mill. No one wants to draw attention to their meager harvest, for fear that the miller might decide they owe even more. The very act of turning grain into flour, a fundamental part of daily life, becomes a clandestine operation, a desperate dance to avoid the watchful, calculating eyes of the miller. It saps the joy from daily life, replacing it with a pervasive sense of caution and suspicion. This pervasive atmosphere of feudal oppression, symbolized and enforced by the mill system, is the context into which you, our new miller, now step. You are not just a grinder of grain. You are a living, breathing symbol of everything the people hate about the Lord's rule and his monopolies. You embody the heavy hand, the unjust fees, the perceived sacrilege of profiting from their daily bread. You are the face of their daily misery. And believe me, that's a face no one wants to see. It's like being the person who has to tell everyone that free Wi-Fi day has been canceled, forever, and then also charge them for the disappointment. This constant, oppressive financial and cultural burden, this pervasive atmosphere of resentment, is the foundation upon which your new job is built. Every day you will walk into the simmering cauldron of anger, knowing that every interaction, every demand for a handful of grain, will deepen the hatred for you. You are not just collecting grain, you are collecting enemies. And in medieval Europe, where peasant revolts and calls for justice are always just beneath the surface, that's a dangerous collection to amass. Your life is now defined by this heavy yoke, and you are about to become one of its most reviled agents. You are now fully immersed in your new, highly precarious role as a miller. Your office is not some grand, comfortable manor house, but the mill itself, a bustling, noisy, and often dusty workplace that is the heart of your domain and the nexus of all the resentment in the village. You spend your days amidst the rhythmic clack of the machinery, the low rumble of the millstones, and the fine dust of ground grain that coats everything, including your clothes and hair. This dust, a constant companion, becomes a symbol of your profession, clinging to you, marking you as the one who profits from the very substance of life. It's like living in a perpetual snowstorm, but the snow is flour, and every flake reminds everyone that you're the one who controls it all. And it gets everywhere. A common historical truth is that medieval mills, whether water-powered or wind-powered, were complex pieces of machinery for their time, requiring a significant initial investment to build and considerable skill to operate and maintain. The miller, therefore, was not merely a laborer, but a craftsman with specialized knowledge of mechanics, hydrology for watermills or aerodynamics for windmills, and the properties of different grains. This expertise, while valuable, didn't often translate into respect from the villagers. Instead, it frequently fueled suspicion that you were manipulating the process for your own gain. You know how to adjust the millstones, how to control the flow of water, how to gauge the wind, all vital skills that no one else in the village possesses, making you indispensable yet also, ironically, more distrusted. It's like being the only person in town who knows how the internet works. So everyone relies on you for Wi-Fi, but they also suspect you're secretly stealing their data. And they're probably not wrong. Your tools are rudimentary but essential various measures for grain bushels, pecks, scales for weighing, shovels for scooping, and your hands, which are perpetually grimy with flour and the grease used to maintain the machinery. You also need a sharp eye for detail, a quick mind for calculations even if they're often in your favor, and a thick skin because the accusations and glares are constant. You stand by the main grinding stones, watching the grain pour in, listening to the satisfying hum of the stones, turning it into fine flour. Every now and then, you might discreetly adjust the gap between the stones, a slight alteration that could mean more flour for you, and less for the peasant whose livelihood passes through your hands. It's a delicate dance, a constant calculation of risk and reward, always pushing the boundaries of what you can get away with. The daily grind begins early. Villagers arrive with their sacks of grain, sometimes walking for miles, their backs bent under the weight of their harvest. They queue outside your mill, a line of weary, hopeful, and deeply resentful faces. As each peasant approaches, you begin the ritual. You inspect their grain, checking for quality, for stones, for anything that might justify a higher fee or a rejection. You then measure it, often using a standard measure, but with a subtle technique that might allow a bit of extra grain to remain in the measuring vessel, unnoticed by the anxious peasant. This miller's thumb or toll dish was a notoriously common trick, where a thumb or extra scoop was used to augment the miller's share, ensuring a bit more for you than was strictly legal. It's a small, almost imperceptible gesture, but over dozens of transactions each day, it adds up to a significant illicit gain. It's like being a barista who always gives themselves an extra splash of milk or a tiny bit more espresso than the customer asked for, and then multiplying that by hundreds of coffees. Suddenly, you've got a whole lot of extra coffee, and no one can quite prove it. A fascinating yet rarely discussed detail about medieval mills is that the millstones themselves were incredibly expensive and difficult to replace, often requiring specialized quarrying and transport over long distances. Their proper dressing resharpening was a critical and highly skilled task, and a poorly dressed stone could ruin an entire batch of grain, making the miller's expertise in this area paramount. This practical reliance on the miller's skill contributed to their perceived power and the public's begrudging need for their services. Despite the animosity, you are the guardian of these vital stones, knowing that without you, the entire village would struggle to make bread. This knowledge gives you leverage, a quiet confidence, even in the face of their open disdain. Historians still widely debate the actual percentage of multure, the miller's fee, that was typically taken, and whether local customs varied significantly, leading to different levels of perceived injustice. Some scholars argue that while the formal percentage was fixed, the informal perks and manipulations accounted for a much larger portion of the miller's true income, contributing most to their negative reputation. You, on the ground, know that the official rate is merely a starting point for your personal profit margin. You are constantly calculating how much extra you can skim, how much more you can charge for a particularly difficult grind, or for ensuring a quicker service. The mill itself is a noisy, isolated place, often a bit outside the main village to catch the best flow of water or wind. This physical separation only reinforces your social isolation. You spend your days with the rhythmic roar of the mill, a constant companion that drowns out the sounds of normal village life. Your nearest neighbors are often the river, the trees, and the occasional wildlife. While you see villagers come and go, your interactions are purely transactional, devoid of warmth or genuine camaraderie. It's like being a lighthouse keeper, but instead of guiding ships, you're processing grain, and everyone who sees your light immediately thinks of how much money you're taking from them. And you can't exactly invite the seagulls over for a chat. The concept of multure, if the miller's legal toll was enshrined in feudal law, but it was the abuse of this toll that truly cemented your infamous status. You are expected to take a portion of the grain as payment, usually 1/16 or 1/24. But the tricks of the trade are numerous. Beyond the miller's thumb, there's the slack sack, a trick where you allow the peasant's sack to remain slightly slack on the scale, making it appear as if there's less grain than there actually is, thus charging a higher proportional fee. Or the false bottom in your own measuring scoop, which allows you to take more for yourself. These aren't just minor miscalculations. They are deliberate, systematic deceptions that slowly, subtly, transfer wealth from the struggling peasant to your own coffers. You become a master of sleight of hand, a magician of measurements, always ensuring the numbers fall in your favor. It's like being a checkout clerk who always accidentally scans an item twice, or a few cents more, on every single transaction, banking on the customer being too tired or trusting to notice. And you're surprisingly good at it, beyond the grain itself. There are other hidden opportunities for profit. The sweeping of the mill floor was a common privilege for millers. After a day of grinding, a defined layer of flour, often mixed with dust, dirt, and even mouse droppings, would accumulate on the floor. While officially this might be considered waste, you, the astute miller, collect it, sift it, and sell it as a lower-grade flour, perhaps to the poorest villagers, or even use it for your own household. It's a testament to the frugality and resourcefulness born of your position, but also a quiet reminder of your willingness to profit from even the most questionable sources. It's like collecting all the crumbs and bits that fall off the bakery counter all day, sweeping them into a bag, and then selling them as rustic flour blend, and people actually buy it. The physical demands of the job are also significant. Lifting heavy sacks of grain, constantly bending, shoveling, and moving around cumbersome machinery takes a toll on your body. The mill is often cold and damp in winter, stifling and dusty in summer. The constant noise can be deafening, dulling your senses and contributing to a pervasive sense of weariness. You might develop a persistent cough from the flour dust, or aches in your back and shoulders from the heavy lifting. This isn't a job for the faint of heart or the physically weak. It requires brute strength and enduring stamina, day in and day out. But the real burden is the constant mental calculation and moral compromise. Every interaction is a test of your cunning, a negotiation even if silent for an extra handful of grain. You are constantly judging people, assessing their desperation, their willingness to argue, their likelihood of complaining to the Lord. You learn to spot the truly destitute, those who can least afford your extra charges, and you still find a way to take a bit more. This internal conflict, this daily erosion of your conscience, is a far heavier weight than any sack of wheat. You might start to rationalize it, telling yourself that everyone else is also trying to get ahead, or that the Lord takes even more. But the faces of those you exploit, their quiet pleas, are difficult to erase from your memory. It's like being a sales manager, and your bonus depends on how much you can upsell people, even if they clearly don't need the extra services. And you know it. You know, and your conscience is starting to feel like a very dry, cracked desert. Your professional life is a solitary one, largely devoid of true colleagues or mentors. While there might be other millers in distant villages, you are the only miller in your manor. There's no Millers Guild in Capernaum, no annual conference to share tips and tricks, no friendly competition. You learn the secrets of the trade, both honest and dishonest, through direct experience and perhaps from your predecessor. This isolation means there's little accountability, few external checks on your behavior, further enabling your corrupt practices. You are the sole authority in your domain, and that power, unchecked, often leads to abuse. So, as the last rays of sun filter through the mill window, illuminating the swirling dust motes like tiny stars, you tally your day's illicit gains, the extra grain, the hidden coins they represent comfort, perhaps a little more food for your family, or a slightly warmer tunic. But they also represent the deepened resentment of every single person who passed through your mill today. You are now truly defined by your choices, marked by the fine white dust of your hated profession. The daily grind of the miller isn't just about turning grain into flour. It's about turning trust into suspicion, community into animosity, and honest labor into personal gain. And that, dear listener, truly sucked. You've settled into the rhythm of the mill, the constant hum of the grind becoming a familiar, if unsettling, soundtrack to your miserable existence. You've mastered the tricks, the subtle movements of your thumb, the slight shift of the sack, the almost imperceptible adjustment of the millstones. You're making money, more than you ever dreamed possible as a simple peasant. But this newfound prosperity comes with a heavy, inescapable price, the toll of unjust fees. This isn't just about the occasional extra coin, it's a systematic, ingrained practice of extracting more than what is rightfully owed, twisting every transaction into a moment of palpable resentment, turning your daily bread into the bread of bitterness for everyone else. A common historical truth is that while medieval feudal lords often set official rates for milling services, multure, millers frequently augmented their income through various illicit means. These unjust fees could involve taking more than the agreed-upon proportion of grain, manipulating measures, or charging additional unofficial levies for perceived extra services, leading to widespread accusations of dishonesty and greed. You aren't just collecting the Lord's share, you're collecting your own. And the more you collect, the richer you become. It's like being the only gas station for miles. And not only do you set the price per gallon, but you also have a fuel quality inspection fee and an air and tires convenience charge that you just invent on the spot, knowing full well everyone has to pay it. And nobody can argue with you. Imagine a brisk autumn morning. Old man Fitzwilliam, a farmer whose hands are gnarled like ancient oak roots from decades of toil, approaches your mill. He's pushing a rickety wheelbarrow laden with sacks of freshly threshed oats, his back bent with effort. You greet him with a curt nod, your eyes already calculating the yield, and more importantly, your potential profit. Officially, the Lord's custom dictates you take, say, 1/16 of the grain as multure. You measure his first sack, your practiced hand deftly employing the miller's thumb, a slight, almost imperceptible press of your thumb onto the scale, or an extra scoop, ensuring a tiny bit more grain falls into your measuring vessel than is strictly fair. Then, as you begin to load his grain into the hopper, you might declare, "Ah, old man, this grain is quite damp today. It will require extra grinding, a drying fee." You understand? Or perhaps, the millstones are running slower this morning. There will be a speed optimization charge to ensure timely service. Old man Fitzwilliam's shoulders slump a little further. He knows these aren't official decrees from the Lord. He knows you're adding them on. He might protest, softly, respectfully. But Master Miller, my harvest was poor this year. My family needs every measure. You look at him, your face impassive. The mill must be maintained. You might say, or these are the costs of doing business. Do you want your flour, or do you want to keep your grain? The unspoken threat hangs heavy in the dusty air if he argues too much. You could always find a reason to delay his grinding, or claim his grain is too poor to process, effectively ruining his efforts. So, with a sigh, he digs deeper into his worn leather pouch, pulling out the extra coins, his eyes meeting yours with a blend of defeat and silent contempt. It's like your elderly neighbor, who barely makes ends meet, trying to get their prescription filled. But the pharmacist adds a bottle handling fee and a pill counting surcharge that are completely made up. You know it's bogus. But what can they do? They need their medicine. This arbitrary addition of fees is your daily bread, your literal livelihood. You learn to invent them on the fly, to justify them with a straight face, knowing full well they are nothing more than a legalized form of extortion. Every transaction becomes an opportunity to gauge how much more you can squeeze. Is the peasant particularly desperate? Perhaps a higher, expedited grinding fee? Is the traveler obviously wealthy? Maybe a dust removal charge will ensure their precious grain stays clean. You become adept at reading people, at sensing their breaking point, at knowing how far you can push before they truly resist. You develop a kind of cynical amusement at your own cleverness, even as a part of you winces at the injustice. A fascinating yet rarely discussed detail about these unjust fees is that while the practice was widespread, some medieval charters and manorial court records actually show instances of villagers successfully bringing complaints against millers for excessive charges or dishonest practices. However, securing justice was often difficult and risky for the peasants, requiring them to directly challenge the lord's appointed miller, highlighting the practical impunity millers often enjoyed despite theoretical legal recourses. This means that, theoretically, there were limits. But in practice, those limits were often ignored by millers like you, who held a monopoly and knew that most peasants wouldn't risk the lord's wrath or the miller's personal retaliation. It's like hearing about a famous lawsuit where a customer successfully sued a giant corporation, but knowing that for every one of those, there are a million everyday rip-offs that go unchallenged, and you're benefiting from those unchallenged rip-offs. Historians still widely debate whether the widespread resentment against millers was solely due to the economic burden of these fees, or if it was equally, if not more, driven by the profound symbolic offense of tampering with the very staff of life bread which held deep religious and cultural significance in medieval society, suggesting a complex interplay of economic hardship and deep cultural religious indignation. For you on the ground, it's likely both. They hate the money you take, but they hate who you take it from their very sustenance even more. Consider the job of a young mother, perhaps named Ilara, with a hungry child clinging to her skirt, bringing her small allotment of barley to your mill. She has been saving this grain, perhaps going without meals herself, to ensure her child has food. You greet her, perhaps with a curt nod, your eyes already calculating. She lays out her meager sack, her face etched with a familiar mixture of weariness and quiet desperation. You quickly appraise the barley, knowing it's not the finest grain, and demand the standard multure. But then you add it, and there's the grain impurity fee, for ensuring the purity of your flour. Or perhaps the grinding precision charge. For fine milling, Alara's shoulders slump a little further. She knows these aren't official fees. She knows you're adding them on. She might protest, softly, respectfully. But Master Miller, my child is ill. My family needs this flour. You look at her, your face impassive. The mill's gears must be oiled, you might say. Or, these are the costs of doing business. Do you want your flour, or do you want to carry your grain home? The unspoken threat hangs heavy in the air if she argues too much. You could always find a reason to delay her grinding, or levy an even higher fine. So, with a sigh, she digs deeper into her worn pouch, pulling out the extra coins, her eyes meeting yours with a blend of defeat and silent hatred. It's like a single mom at the grocery store trying to buy basic formula for her baby, and the cashier randomly adds a formula mixing fee and a baby breathing surcharge. You know it's garbage, but what can she do? Her baby needs to eat. The psychological toll of constantly engaging in these unjust extractions is profound. You see the resentment, the quiet desperation, the anger in people's eyes. You build walls around yourself, hardening your heart to the pleas and the suffering. You tell yourself they'd do the same if they were in your shoes, or that it's just the way the world works, or that you're simply doing your job within a flawed system. But deep down, a part of you knows it's wrong. Every extra handful of grain you pocket comes with a sliver of someone else's pain, their dreams, their very livelihood. It's a slow erosion of your own humanity, a gradual descent into moral ambiguity. You start seeing people not as individuals, but as walking sacks of grain, each with a different capacity for being squeezed. The ubiquity of these unjust fees means that trust, a cornerstone of any community, slowly erodes. Neighbors eye each other with suspicion, wondering if one is paying less, if another is getting a deal from the miller. Everyone feels victimized, and the miller becomes the visible embodiment of that victimization. Your presence in the mill, by the fields, near the village well, transforms every honest harvest into a potential trap, every hopeful grinding into a calculated risk. The very economic fabric of the community is frayed by this constant arbitrary predation. You learn to live with the glares, the muttered insults, the cold shoulders. You develop a sort of professional detachment, a protective shell that allows you to carry out your duties without being overwhelmed by the suffering you inflict. You focus on the numbers, the calculations, the growing pile of grain in your own storage bin. You might tell yourself that this is simply how the world works, that power takes what it wants, and you are merely facilitating that reality. It's a grim philosophy, but it's one that helps you sleep at night, or at least try to. The money, of course, is a powerful motivator. You see the comfortable lives of the Lord's bailiff, their slightly finer clothes, their more plentiful meals. You see a path to wealth, a way to escape the grinding poverty that most of your fellow villagers endure. Every unjust fee you collect, every extra handful of grain you skim, brings you closer to that dream, that illusion of security and status. You might even justify it by telling yourself that you're simply taking advantage of an opportunity, that if you didn't do it, someone else just as ruthless would. It's a morally corrupting influence, a constant whisper in your ear that more is always better, no matter the cost to others. This wasn't just about the amount of the mulcher. It was about the process of its collection, the blatant exploitation woven into the very fabric of the system. The unjust fees were a daily insult, a continuous reminder that the power dynamics were rigged against the common person, and that agents like you were profiting directly from their helplessness. It's the arbitrary nature of it, the feeling of being cheated not by law, but by pure, unadulterated greed, that truly fuels the hatred. Consider the sheer exhaustion of always being on, always calculating, always guarding against deception, always ready to demand more. You can't relax, not really. Every face is a potential challenge. Every conversation, a negotiation. Every transaction, a battle for a few more handfuls of grain. The weight of this constant vigilance, combined with the moral burden of your actions, creates a profound internal conflict that slowly chips away at your spirit. It's like being a detective whose only job is to find reasons to fine everyone he meets, and he gets a bonus for every fine. You'd probably start seeing violations everywhere. The resentment doesn't just simmer, it sometimes boils over. You've heard stories of other millers, perhaps in more remote, more volatile manners, being attacked, beaten, or even killed by desperate villagers. While your manor might be more stable, the threat is always there, a low hum of danger that underscores every interaction. The unjust fees you collect, the wealth you accumulate, paint an even larger target on your back. You are a symbol of their suffering, and symbols can be violently shattered. This constant underlying fear adds another layer to the awful reality of your job, transforming every day into a perilous journey. Every demand into a potential flashpoint. You learn to carry a sturdy club, perhaps, or to ensure that the Lord's guards are always within earshot, even if they sometimes turn a blind eye to your more egregious demands. You develop a keen awareness of your surroundings, always scanning for trouble, for the glint of anger in someone's eyes, for the sudden shift in the villager's mood. Your life becomes a perpetual state of defensiveness, always anticipating the next threat, always ready to protect your ill-gotten gains. The burden of these unjust fees, then, is multifaceted. It's the economic hardship they inflict on the populace, driving them further into poverty. It's the moral corrosion they cause within you, hardening your heart and eroding your sense of right and wrong. And it's the constant threat of violence, the pervasive fear that your greed will one day catch up to you. You are caught in a grim, self-perpetuating cycle where your profit is directly tied to the injustice you inflict. And that injustice, in turn, fuels the very hatred that threatens your life. It truly sucks to be both the instigator and the potential victim of such pervasive injustice. Your hands are stained not just with flour, but with the silent tears of those you've exploited. And you carry that burden, day in and day out, whether you choose to acknowledge it or not. You are now knee-deep in the flour dust and the daily grind of extortion, your conscience slowly hardening like stale bread. But as you walk through the small, muddy lanes of your medieval village, the weight that truly settles on your shoulders isn't just the physical burden of the grain sacks or the ledger. It's the social scorn and public mistrust that follow you like a persistent, unpleasant shadow. A constant, palpable force of quiet condemnation that isolates you more profoundly than any physical barrier. A common historical truth is that medieval millers were among the most disliked and distrusted figures in their communities, often caricatured in popular folklore, literature, and proverbs as greedy, dishonest, and exploitative. This deep-seated suspicion stemmed primarily from their monopoly over a vital foodstuff grain to flour, coupled with widespread accusations of cheating through dishonest measures or by taking an excessive mulcher fee. You aren't just doing a job, you're embodying a centuries-old stereotype of avarice, a walking, talking symbol of everything the villagers resent about their harsh lives. It's like being a modern-day internet service provider who constantly throttles speeds. But in a world where everyone relies on you for food, and your office is literally in the middle of their village, and you just know every time you step outside, someone's silently wishing you'd trip into a puddle. Imagine a brisk market day. The village square, usually a vibrant hub of chatter and trade, feels different when you're there. You walk past the blacksmith's forge, where sparks fly and the hammer rings with a cheerful clang. The blacksmith, usually boisterous, offers you only a curt, silent nod, his eyes lingering on your flour-dusted clothes with a cold, almost accusatory gaze. You try to join a small group of farmers discussing the upcoming harvest, their voices low and convivial. As you approach, their conversation abruptly stops. Their eyes flick to you, not with curiosity, but with a mixture of suspicion and thinly veiled contempt. Some turn away, others might subtly shift their stance, creating a wider gap, as if your very presence contaminates the air around them. No one invites you into their circle. No one offers a friendly greeting beyond a perfunctory nod. You are utterly alone in a crowd of your own people, an unwelcome presence among those whose daily bread you control. It's like showing up to a block party after everyone found out you've been secretly raising everyone's rent by 20% for the last 5 years. The music just seems to die, and the barbecue smoke suddenly feels a little too thick. This isn't merely inconvenience. It's a profound social exclusion. You are not invited to village feasts or celebrations. When a child is born, or a couple weds, you hear the distant sounds of merriment, the joyous songs and laughter, but you are not part of it. Your family, if they remain with you, might also face this quiet ostracism. Your wife might endure cold shoulders at the village well. Her presence met with stony silence by other women. Your children, if you have any, might be excluded from games. Their playmates' parents whispering warnings about the miller's children. This isolation gnaws at you, creating a hollow ache in your chest. You are financially successful, yes, but profoundly poor in human connection. You're rich in grain, but starving for kindness. A fascinating, yet rarely discussed, detail about this social scorn is that the deep-seated mistrust of millers was so widespread that medieval legal codes in some regions even included specific regulations for millers, such as mandates for their weights and measures to be regularly inspected and severe penalties for dishonest practices, reflecting the community's pervasive belief that they were prone to cheating. This isn't just popular opinion, it's codified suspicion, written into the very laws of the land, affirming your role as someone who must be watched. It's like being a financial advisor whose job literally comes with a government-mandated warning label that says, "This person is probably trying to rip you off." And you can't even get that warning removed. Historians still widely debate whether the universal portrayal of millers as cheats was a self-fulfilling prophecy, where the expectation of dishonesty encouraged such behavior, or if the inherent nature of their monopoly simply provided too many opportunities for exploitation, making integrity difficult to maintain. For you, it's a bit of both. You are tempted by the opportunities, but you also feel the crushing weight of their prejudgment. You're assumed to be a cheat, so why not be one? Consider the job of a traveling peddler, a person who relies on goodwill and trust to sell their wares from village to village. They are welcomed into homes, offered food, and share stories. You, however, are met with closed doors. If you try to purchase goods from a peddler, they might serve you politely but quickly, their eyes avoiding yours, their hands counting your coins with an almost frantic haste, as if your very touch might taint their wares. There's no casual banter, no shared jokes. You are a transaction, nothing more, and a deeply distrusted one at that. The subtle yet pervasive message is clear: you are not one of them. It's like being a door-to-door salesman who everyone has already Googled and knows has a 1-star rating. They still answer the door because they have to, but they keep their hand on the knob and their wallet safely hidden. The constant barrage of cold stares, the whispered insults, the subtle acts of avoidance, they chip away at your spirit. You find yourself avoiding public places, perhaps sending a servant to conduct your errands, just to escape the relentless waves of animosity. You might eat alone, even within your own home, if your family has also begun to distance themselves from you, tired of the social burden your profession imposes on them. The silence, the emptiness, becomes a constant companion, a heavy cloak you wear even in the warmest summer sun. A profound literary example of this social scorn comes from Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, where the miller is famously depicted as a crude, cheating, and drunken character who steals grain and boasts of his dishonesty. Solidifying this negative stereotype in English literature for centuries. This isn't just local gossip, it's a cultural archetype, a literary condemnation that cements your infamous place in the collective consciousness. It's like your entire profession is permanently cast as the villain in a famous play that everyone studies in school. And there's no opportunity for a redemption arc. The psychological impact of this constant social rejection is severe. You develop a deep sense of paranoia, always expecting the worst from people. You become suspicious, wary, seeing insults and threats in every interaction. Trust becomes a foreign concept, as you know that almost everyone you encounter secretly wishes you ill. You might try to buy friendships with your ill-gotten wealth, throwing lavish parties or offering generous gifts, but the recipients often take the bounty with a thin smile, their eyes still holding that unmistakable glint of disdain. True connection, genuine warmth, seems utterly out of reach, even within your own family. If they choose to remain with you, you feel the strain. Your wife might endure the whispers of other women at the well. Your children might face ostracization at school or in play. Your parents might feel the shame of your profession. Your wealth buys you comfort. Yes, a finer house, better food, expensive clothes. But it cannot buy you respect, or belonging, or the simple dignity of being accepted by your own kin and community. It's like winning the lottery. But the prize is a lifetime supply of bad reviews from everyone you meet. You're rich, but profoundly lonely. The hatred extends beyond mere social snubbing. It manifests in practical ways. If your donkey wanders into a neighbor's field, they might be quick to complain to the Lord's bailiff, hoping to get you in trouble. If you need help with a broken roof, no one offers a hand. If your child falls ill, the local healer might be reluctant to treat them, or might charge you an exorbitant fee, perhaps even more than you would extort from them. You are on your own, isolated by the very wealth and power you've gained. This pervasive animosity creates a chilling feedback loop. The more they hate you, the more you harden your heart. The more you harden your heart, the more ruthless you become in your dealings, further fueling their hatred. You become trapped in a self-fulfilling prophecy, becoming the monster they perceive you to be, because it's the only way to survive the constant onslaught of their contempt. It's a truly bleak existence, devoid of genuine human warmth or connection. You're not just collecting grain, you're collecting enemies. The public hatred is so intense that it even finds its way into common sayings and proverbs. You might overhear people comparing someone disliked to the miller, a universal shorthand for a scoundrel, a cheat, a betrayer. Your profession is synonymous with villainy, a living embodiment of everything wrong with the Lord's oppressive rule. Your name, your livelihood, becomes a curse word, a byword for greed and oppression. It's like being the villain in every story the village elders tell the children at night. And they're not even exaggerating. This complete social and spiritual marginalization, this pervasive hatred, transforms your daily life into a constant, grinding battle for emotional survival. You might retreat into your wealth, surrounding yourself with luxuries that no one else can afford. But even these comforts feel hollow without the warmth of human connection. The laughter from the marketplace, the sounds of families celebrating, they only serve to underscore your profound loneliness. You learn to recognize the subtle shifts in body language, the way people tense up as you approach, the way their eyes dart away, the way their smiles vanish. Every interaction is a reminder of your place, or rather, your lack of place. In their world, you become hyper-aware of your own otherness, a perpetual outsider looking in. This constant self-awareness of being despised is a heavy burden, a mental and emotional weight that never truly lifts. It's like constantly being the only person at a party everyone else wished hadn't shown up. And they're not even trying to hide it. The children, especially, are a poignant reminder of your lost innocence. Once, perhaps, you dreamed of a different life, of being a respected member of your community, a craftsman, a farmer, a simple villager. But now, the children's innocent, unvarnished hatred reflects the truth of your current standing. They haven't learned to mask their feelings, they simply react to the collective scorn. Their unfiltered contempt is a mirror reflecting the ugliness of your chosen path, leaving you with nowhere to hide from the brutal reality of your social standing. So, as you count your coins at the end of a long, arduous day, the silver feels cold and heavy in your hands. It buys you security, yes, and comfort. But it also buys you isolation, contempt, and a permanent stain on your soul. The social scorn and public mistrust you endure are not just unpleasantries. They are the pervasive, agonizing consequence of your profession. A constant, chilling reminder that you have traded your place among your people for the fleeting illusion of wealth and the Lord's favor. And in medieval Europe, that was a bargain that truly sucked. You, our reviled miller, now understand the crushing weight of public hatred, the cold stares, and the profound isolation that define your daily life in this medieval village. But there's another, more immediate terror that lurks beneath the surface of every transaction. Every demand for grain, the peril of violent retribution. This isn't a theoretical danger, it's a visceral, ever-present threat. A A chilling reminder that your despised profession could, at any moment, cost you your livelihood, your safety, or even your life at the hands of desperate, enraged villagers. A common historical truth is that medieval peasants, though often oppressed, were not entirely passive. When pushed to the brink by famine, excessive taxes, or perceived injustices from figures like millers, they could resort to local acts of defiance and violence. Millers, being tangible and immediate symbols of exploitation, were frequent targets of physical assaults, property damage like sabotaging the mill, or even mob justice, reflecting the intense desperation and simmering resentment within rural communities. You are not just hated, you are a target, a symbol ripe for violent reprisal. It's like being a meter maid in a neighborhood where everyone's car is about to be repossessed, but instead of just getting yelled at, they might actually try to set your little scooter on fire. And, deep down, that you probably deserve it. Imagine a sweltering afternoon at your mill. The air is thick and heavy, the rhythm of the grinding stones almost hypnotic, but your senses are on high alert. A farmer, perhaps a young man named Thomas, approaches with a meager sack of wheat. His face is grim. He's had a terrible harvest, barely enough to feed his family. You inspect his grain, tally the small amount, and then, as is your custom, declare your arbitrary grinding precision charge and the standard, but still excessive. Mulcher. Thomas's eyes narrow. He pleads, his voice low and strained. Master Miller, I have nothing more. My children are hungry. Please, can you take less today? You shake your head, unmoved. The mill must be kept running. The Lord's due is the Lord's due. Suddenly, Thomas's face contorts with a raw, unbridled fury you've seen countless times, but never quite this intense. His plea turns into a snarl. You thief, you fatten yourself on our misery. Before you can react, he lunges forward, not at your coins, but at you. A wild, desperate punch connects with your jaw, sending a searing pain through your head. You stumble back, disoriented, your measuring scoop scattering from your table. Other villagers who moments ago seemed passive, now shift. Some watch with grim satisfaction, others with a glint of complicity in their eyes. A few might even cheer Thomas on, their pent-up frustrations finding a voice. The air crackles with unspoken rage, the collective frustrations of years of oppression suddenly finding a single, despised target you. It's like being a referee at a high-stakes championship game. And you make a bad call, and suddenly the entire stadium isn't just booing, they're throwing their hot dogs and drinks directly at your head. And you realize with a sickening lurch, that there are no hot dogs where you're going. This isn't an isolated incident. Every single day, you face the very real possibility of such an outburst. It could be a farmer like Thomas, a laborer pushed to the brink, or even just a frustrated neighbor who's had enough of your petty extortions. You learn to keep a sturdy club, not just for prodding grain, but for defense. You position yourself strategically within the mill, always keeping an escape route in mind, a path to the back door or a window. You develop an almost superhuman sense of awareness, constantly scanning the crowd of peasants, looking for the telltale signs of escalating anger, the clenched jaw, the narrowed eyes, the sudden cessation of chatter, the tightening grip on a tool. A fascinating yet rarely discussed detail about these acts of violence is that beyond spontaneous outbursts, medieval peasant revolts, while often targeting broader feudal institutions, sometimes specifically focused on mills and millers as symbolic acts of resistance. Destroying a mill or attacking a miller was a direct blow against the Lord's authority and a tangible act of defiance against perceived exploitation, making millers prime targets during periods of social unrest. This means that you're not just at risk from individual rage. You're a legitimate target for highly motivated, ideologically driven groups who see your destruction as a step towards broader social justice. It's like being a government informant, and there's an entire organized crime syndicate actively hunting you down, not just for revenge, but for the cause. and you know they mean business. Historians still widely debate the extent to which feudal lords effectively protected their millers from local violence, weighing the practical difficulties of providing constant security against the strategic necessity of maintaining the mill's operation and revenue stream. Some argue that lords might have allowed minor acts of violence against millers to diffuse popular anger, as long as the overall system remained intact. While you are technically the lord's agent, and he benefits from your work, he can't be everywhere at once. And sometimes, you get the feeling he doesn't really care if you get a few bumps and bruises, as long as the flour keeps coming and the revenue keeps flowing. Your personal safety is secondary to the manor's income. You're a disposable asset in their eyes. Consider the job of a lord's bailiff assigned to maintain order in the village. You stand there, perhaps leaning against the mill wall, observing the tense interactions between the miller and the villagers. You are supposed to maintain order, to protect the lord's interests, but you also see the poverty, the desperation, the raw hatred directed at the miller. You might feel a flicker of sympathy, or perhaps just boredom, as you watch the same arguments play out day after day. If a minor scuffle breaks out, you might intervene, or you might let it play out for a moment, sending a subtle message that sometimes the locals need to blow off steam. Your presence is a deterrent, but not an absolute guarantee of safety. And you definitely didn't sign up for this kind of babysitting duty for you. The constant threat of physical harm shapes your very being. You become jumpy, prone to sudden starts, always looking over your shoulder. Sleep might be elusive, filled with nightmares of angry faces and raised fists, of the millstones grinding your very bones. You might develop a tic, a nervous habit, or a haunted look in your eyes. This isn't just fear, it's a sustained physiological response to living on the edge. A perpetual state of heightened alert that grinds down your nervous system. Your body is always ready to fight or flee, constantly anticipating the next blow, the next assault, even away from your mill. The danger follows you. You might be walking home after dark, the narrow lanes silent and dark, when a sudden rustle in the shadows sends your heart pounding. Is it just the wind? Or is someone lurking, waiting for an opportunity to exact revenge? You carry your ill-gotten wealth, a literal target on your back, knowing that you are despised by your own people and only nominally protected by your lord. Every shadow is a potential assailant. Every strange noise a sign of impending doom. It's like constantly being in a horror movie, but you're the villain, and everyone in the audience wants you to get got. And they're all carrying pitchforks. The public nature of your job exacerbates the danger. You are known. Your face is familiar. Your wealth, though providing some comfort, also makes you stand out. A visible symbol of what people believe you've stolen from them. You can't simply disappear or blend into the crowd. You are branded, marked for resentment, and that mark makes you vulnerable. It's like trying to live a quiet life after winning the lottery. But everyone knows exactly how much you won and where you live. And they all think you owe them a piece of it. This inherent danger also makes it difficult to form genuine relationships. Who would want to associate with someone constantly under threat of violence? Your few companions are likely other mill workers if you can even afford them. Equally despised, equally paranoid, or perhaps the Lord's bailiff, who views you with a mix of disdain and detached amusement. Trust is a luxury you cannot afford, and true friendship seems an impossible dream. You are forced into a solitary existence, surrounded by potential enemies, both seen and unseen. The physical violence isn't just about a punch or a kick. It can escalate. You hear whispers of millers found dead in ditches, or mills set ablaze. The tools of your trade, your measures, your scales, the very millstones are also targets, as destroying them is a direct act of defiance against the Lord's authority and a temporary reprieve for the indebted villagers. You live with the knowledge that one day, it might not just be a black eye, but something far, far worse. The chilling reality is that your feudal overlords, while benefiting from your services, also view you as expendable. If you are killed, they will simply appoint another miller. Your life, your safety, is a mere footnote in the grand machinery of manorial revenue. This realization adds a profound layer of despair to your daily peril. You are a pawn, a tool, easily replaced, without honor in your own community or true value to your masters. It's like being a disposable character in a video game, destined to be defeated by the angry mob, only to respawn as someone else. But you don't get to respawn. So, as the sun sets over your medieval village, casting long shadows across the muddy paths, you secure your mill, double-check the sturdy locks on your storage bins, and begin your walk home. Every shadow seems to deepen. Every sound seems amplified. You clutch your club a little tighter, your senses on high alert. The day's earnings, a heavy weight in your pouch, feel less like a blessing and more like a curse, a magnet for the very dangers you try so desperately to avoid. The peril of violent retribution is not just a concept. It is the chilling, ever-present reality that defines your every waking moment. A constant reminder that being a medieval miller truly sucked. You, our miller in the dusty confines of your essential but reviled mill, have battled the public scorn and dodged the threat of violent retribution. But as the long, laborious days turn into even longer, quieter nights, a different kind of darkness settles over you, the moral decay and spiritual burden that gnaws at your soul. This isn't about physical danger. It's about the internal rot, the agonizing conflict between your increasingly dishonest actions and the faint echoes of your conscience, leaving you perpetually adrift in a sea of guilt and self-loathing. A common historical truth is that in medieval Christian society, widespread religious teachings condemned dishonesty, covetousness, and exploitation, particularly of the poor. For millers whose profession inherently offered numerous opportunities for deceit a key, jigju, through false weights or excessive tolls. This meant their actions were often considered sinful, leading to a profound spiritual crisis for those with any remaining moral compass, and a societal perception of them as deeply immoral. You're not just doing a bad job, you're committing a sin, a betrayal of the very spiritual tenets taught in the village church, the same church you might occasionally attend, though often with a sense of unease. It's like being a devout churchgoer who constantly cheats on their taxes. And every time you hear a sermon about honesty, you feel a sharp, uncomfortable pang in your gut. And you just know the angels are shaking their heads, perhaps even gossiping about your miller's thumb. Imagine yourself, at the end of a long, grueling day, returning to your relatively comfortable home, perhaps a little larger and better built than those of the peasants. You sit alone, the dim light of a tallow candle casting long shadows across the rough-hewn table. You count your day's earnings, the handfuls of extra grain, the illicit coins, perhaps even a stolen chicken offered as a bribe. These are your profits, your security, the tangible proof of your success in this despised profession. But as your fingers touch them, they feel cold, heavy, almost tainted. You think of the haggard faces of the farmers, the trembling hands of the young mother, the whispered pleas of the poor from whom you extracted these very gains, perhaps adding your own arbitrary fees. Each extra measure, each hidden coin, feels less like a reward and more like a symbol of their suffering, a testament to your own moral compromise. It's like counting your earnings from a job where you had to charge a dying person for the air they breathed. The money is good, but the mental images are terrible. And you know deep down, the dying person did nothing wrong. Your conscience, once a clear guide, now feels murky, distorted. You try to rationalize your actions. I'm just doing my job. If I didn't do it, someone else would. Or the Lord takes his share anyway. At least this way, some of it benefits me, a fellow commoner. You might even tell yourself that you are merely surviving, adapting to a harsh reality where everyone takes what they can. But these justifications ring hollow in the quiet of the night. You remember the teachings of the village priest, the emphasis on honesty, charity, and fair dealings. Your actions stand in stark contrast to these sacred principles, creating an unbearable cognitive dissonance. A fascinating yet rarely discussed detail about this spiritual burden is that some medieval penitentials manuals for confessors specifically address the sins of millers, instructing priests on how to guide them towards repentance, often requiring restitution of ill-gotten gains and a genuine change of heart. This suggests that while your profession was condemned, the church offered pathways for spiritual reconciliation, but these demanded immense personal sacrifice and true contrition. The knowledge that redemption is possible, but difficult, only adds to the torment, because it means the choice is yours. It's like knowing you can finally get a good night's sleep, but only if you spend all night sorting through every bad decision you've ever made and somehow reversing them all. Historians still widely debate the psychological impact of excommunication or perceived spiritual impurity on individuals in medieval society, and whether the internal moral conflict experienced by millers was primarily due to personal guilt, social pressure, or a genuine fear of divine judgment, suggesting a complex interplay of internal and external factors driving their torment. For you, it's likely all of them, a crushing weight from every direction. You feel it in the pit of your stomach, the gnawing anxiety that perhaps God has turned his face from you. Consider the job of the village priest. Father Michael, a man you might have once respected or even admired. You avoid his gaze when you see him, knowing that he likely views you as a sinner, perhaps even ritually unclean in a spiritual sense, unworthy of the divine blessings. You might yearn to attend the Sunday service, to participate in the communal prayers, to feel that connection to God and community again. But you can't. Your presence would be an affront. The spiritual nourishment that sustains others is denied to you, leaving a gaping void in your soul. You are on the outside looking in, observing the rituals of your faith from a distance, like a parched man watching others drink from a spring he cannot approach. It's like being a fan of a sports team, but you're banned from attending any games because you're secretly rooting for the opposing team and are also betting against your own. And you know, they know, the isolation, as we've discussed, is not just social, it's deeply spiritual. You feel cut off from God, from the traditions that once grounded your life. Every time you tamper with a measure, every time you levy an unjust fee, you feel a further distance growing between you and your faith. This isn't just about earthly consequences, it's about the eternal, about your place in the eyes of the Almighty. The fear of divine judgment, of being held accountable for your actions in the afterlife, is a constant, chilling companion. You might try to pray, but the words feel hollow, caught in your throat, choked by the weight of your unconfessed sins. You might try to find solace in your wealth, accumulating more possessions, perhaps a slightly larger house, better clothes, or even a few luxury items from the traveling peddler. But these material comforts offer little relief from the torment within. The luxurious fabrics feel rough against your skin. The finest foods taste like ash in your mouth. The potent ale does little to dull the sharp edges of your guilt. They are empty pleasures, unable to fill the spiritual void that grows larger with each passing day. It's like trying to fill a bucket with holes in it using a tiny teacup. You keep pouring, but it never gets full. And the water is a metaphor for your soul. The dreams, if you even get any undisturbed sleep, might be haunted. You see the faces of those you've wronged, their silent accusations piercing through your defenses. You hear the whispers of condemnation, the echoes of the curses thrown at you in the marketplace. You might even dream of divine judgment, of standing before a holy tribunal, unable to offer a defense for your actions, your hands perpetually reaching for an extra handful of grain. These nightmares are not just bad dreams. They are the outward manifestation of your internal torment, the mind's way of grappling with the profound moral compromises you've made. The cycle of guilt and self-justification becomes exhausting. You oscillate between moments of profound regret and hardened defiance. Sometimes you might contemplate abandoning your profession, returning the money, seeking forgiveness from the villagers and the priest. But the thought of losing your newfound wealth, of returning to the grinding poverty you escaped, is terrifying. The golden chains of your profession are heavy, but they are still chains, binding you to a life you increasingly despise but cannot escape. You are trapped, caught between the lure of worldly gain and the agonizing whispers of your conscience. Even your physical health might suffer from this constant moral distress. You might develop chronic stomach issues, persistent headaches, or a general malaise that no village healer can cure. The stress, the guilt, the internal conflict they manifest physically, draining your energy and making every day an uphill battle against your own tormented mind and body. It's like trying to run a marathon with a literal rock in your shoe. But the rock is made of pure, unadulterated shame and fear of damnation, and it's getting heavier with every step. This spiritual torment also affects your ability to connect with others on any meaningful level. How can you genuinely trust or confide in anyone when you are constantly betraying your own values and exploiting those around you? Your relationships become superficial, transactional, mirroring the nature of your profession. You hide your true feelings, your deep-seated guilt, behind a facade of callous indifference, pushing away anyone who might try to get close. You are a solitary island, surrounded by a sea of resentment and your own internal demons. The only people you truly interact with are other mill workers, if you employ any, or perhaps the Lord's bailiff, equally despised, equally hardened. But even among them, a sense of camaraderie is often absent. Everyone is looking out for themselves, suspicious of others, knowing that betrayal is always a possibility in a system built on greed and exploitation. You are perpetually on guard, even with those who share your profession, making genuine human connection almost impossible. This moral decay isn't a sudden event. It's a gradual process, a slow chipping away at your character. Each unjust demand, each harsh word, each stolen handful of grain contributes to the erosion of your ethical core. You become desensitized, hardened, losing the capacity for empathy and compassion that once defined you as a simple peasant. The person you once were slowly fades away, replaced by a hollow shell, driven by avarice and fear. You are less a man and more a function of your hated profession. So, as the night deepens and the medieval village finally falls silent, you lie awake, staring at the rough wooden ceiling of your house, the money in your strongbox, the fine clothes in your wardrobe, the comfortable bed beneath you. They offer no true comfort. The moral decay and spiritual torment are pervasive, an internal fire that burns relentlessly, fueled by your choices, your greed, and the agonizing realization that you have traded your soul for silver and flour. In medieval Europe, the cost of being a miller truly sucked, not just for your life, but for your eternal spirit. You, our medieval miller, are now wrestling with the crushing weight of public scorn and the gnawing demons of moral decay. But as you look out from your solitary mill, a profound, chilling reality strikes you in the quietest moments, the isolated life of an outcast. This isn't just about being disliked, it's a deep, aching loneliness. A constant reminder that your chosen path has severed you from the very bonds of community, family, and genuine human connection, leaving you adrift in a sea of suspicion and solitude. A common historical truth is that medieval millers were often socially segregated from the main village community. Their mills were frequently located on the outskirts of settlements, near rivers or on exposed hilltops for wind, creating a physical distance that mirrored their social isolation. This physical separation, combined with their universally distrusted reputation, led to a profound sense of loneliness and exclusion. You live on the fringes, always observing, never truly belonging. It's like being the only person at a huge family reunion, but your house is a mile away, and everyone at the reunion knows you secretly stole all the good desserts before anyone else got any, and you just know all the good conversations are happening without you. Imagine a cool evening settling over your village. You see groups of neighbors gathering in their courtyards, sharing simple meals, their laughter echoing softly in the twilight. Children play in the streets, their excited shouts a symphony of innocent joy. You watch from your slightly larger, perhaps slightly grander, mill house, the one your illicit gains have afforded you. You see families sitting together, sharing stories, breaking bread, connected by bonds of kinship and shared experience. You feel a pang of something akin to envy, or perhaps a deeper, more profound sorrow. You are a silent observer, an outsider looking in on a world from which you are utterly, irrevocably excluded. It's like watching a heartwarming movie of happy families having fun, but you're stuck outside the theater, just pressing your face against the glass, and the movie is in black and white. This isolation isn't just social. It seeps into the very fabric of your domestic life. Your wife, if she stays with you, might endure the cold shoulders and whispered judgments of other women at the village well or in the market. Your children, if you have any, might be taunted by their peers, facing exclusion from games and friendships because of their father's profession. They might come home with tear-stained faces, asking why no one wants to play with them, why they're different. And you, the architect of their misery, have no good answer. The comfortable home you've provided feels less like a sanctuary and more like a gilded cage, trapping you and your family in a bubble of prosperity and profound loneliness. A fascinating, yet rarely discussed detail about this social isolation is that while millers were broadly despised, their specialized skills in operating and maintaining the crucial mill machinery sometimes made them indispensable to the Lord, forcing certain limited interactions with manor officials or even some villagers who needed their specific expertise in a pinch, creating a paradoxical situation where they were both essential and utterly reviled. This means that while people might not want to share a meal with you, they might grudgingly seek your assistance with a broken hand quern if they dared to own one, or a technical question about grain, creating a transactional relationship devoid of any genuine respect or warmth. It's like being the only person who knows how to fix everyone's broken computers at a party, so everyone talks to you only for that, and then immediately goes back to ignoring you. And they don't even say thank you. Historians still widely debate whether the relative wealth of millers allowed them to form alternative social circles, perhaps among other marginalized figures or less scrupulous manor officials, or if their isolation was so complete that even significant wealth offered little respite from profound loneliness, suggesting a varied experience depending on individual temperament and opportunities. For you, in this particular village, it might feel like your only true companions are the grinding stones and the echoes of your own thoughts. Consider the job of a small shopkeeper in the marketplace, someone who relies on community trust and goodwill for their livelihood. They might offer a kind word and an extra apple to a regular customer, but when you approach their stall, their smile stiffens. Their transactions with you are purely business, cold and efficient. There's no friendly banter, no casual conversation. You are just a customer, and a reviled one at that. They take your coins, clean them perhaps a little too vigorously, and hand you your goods, their eyes already scanning for a more welcome patron. This constant distancing, this subtle yet palpable aversion, is a daily microaggression that chips away at your spirit. It's like being a famous celebrity trying to buy groceries, but everyone working there acts like you're just a random, slightly odorous stranger. And they only accept exact change. This profound lack of genuine human connection fosters a deep sense of distrust within you. You learn to be suspicious of everyone, believing that any seemingly kind gesture is merely a veiled attempt to gain an advantage or to entrap you. You become cynical, seeing ulterior motives in every interaction, hardening yourself against perceived slights. This self-imposed emotional fortress, built to protect you from the pain of rejection, only deepens your isolation, pushing away the very people who might, against all odds, be willing to offer a moment of genuine kindness, even the Lord's bailiff or guards. Your supposed protectors and allies often treat you with a detached indifference or even thinly veiled contempt. They might protect you from physical harm to protect the Lord's asset, the mill, more than you, but they rarely offer companionship or respect. You are a necessary evil to them, a tool to be used, but not a comrade to be befriended. You are useful, but you are not valued. This constant reminder of your transactional worth, even to those who benefit from your service, reinforces your profound loneliness. It's like being a highly efficient robot that can perform complex tasks, but everyone treats you like a glorified calculator with legs. And you have feelings. The feasts and celebrations that punctuate medieval life, harvest festivals, saints' days, the myriad weddings and births become painful reminders of your exclusion. You hear the joyful music, the boisterous laughter, the sounds of communal celebration drifting from homes and public spaces. You are outside, forever separate, watching the dance of life unfold without you. The warmth and camaraderie of these events are denied to you, leaving you with an aching emptiness that no amount of silver can fill. You're like the kid who's always picked last for dodgeball, but for life itself. And the ball is always aimed at your head. Your wealth, which was supposed to bring security and comfort, paradoxically reinforces your isolation. The more you acquire, the more you stand out from your impoverished neighbors. Your finer clothes, your well-built house, your better food. They are visible markers of your detachment, tangible symbols of the perceived betrayal that separates you from your community. The very things that make your life easier physically make it harder emotionally, creating a deeper chasm between you and everyone else. It's like having a diamond-encrusted car, but no one wants to ride with you. And you have to pay for parking. This isolated life breeds a unique kind of despair. You might yearn for acceptance, for a simple word of kindness, for a moment of genuine human warmth. But you know, deep down, that you have forfeited that right. The choices you've made, the pain you've inflicted, the contempt you've earned, they are an invisible wall around you, impenetrable and unforgiving. You are a prisoner of your own making, trapped by the consequences of your ambition and greed, the silence of your own home. When you return after a day of confrontation, can be deafening. Without the chatter of friends, the warmth of communal meals, the easy rhythm of accepted social interaction, your thoughts become your sole companions. And often, those thoughts are dark regrets, self-recrimination, anxiety about the future, and a deep, pervasive sense of loneliness. You might find yourself talking to yourself, or to the millstones, just to break the suffocating quiet. This emotional and social starvation can lead to a kind of psychological hardening. You might become more ruthless in your collections, caring even less about the suffering of others, as if to prove that their rejection doesn't bother you. This becomes a defense mechanism, a way to cope with the pain of isolation by embracing the very qualities that caused it. You become the villain everyone expects, not because you were born evil, but because the world relentlessly pushed you into that role. It's like being a supervillain who started out just wanting to be loved, but then everyone hated him. So he just decided to lean into the whole evil genius thing. And now he has a really cool lair. So, as the stars begin to pepper the vast medieval sky, and the sounds of your village fade into a gentle hum, you are left alone with your thoughts. The lamp burns low, casting your solitary shadow on the wall. The coins in your strongbox offer no comfort, for they are the currency of your exile. The isolated life of an outcast is not merely a consequence of your profession, it is its very essence. A profound and agonizing emptiness that truly sucked the warmth and light from your daily existence, leaving you to drift in a sea of your own making. You, our isolated medieval miller, have felt the sting of social scorn and the chill of spiritual torment. But in your line of work, there's an almost irresistible current that pulls you deeper into the darkness bribery, corruption, and temptation. These aren't just abstract concepts. They are the pervasive daily realities that not only define your profession but also constantly test your character, offering lucrative shortcuts at the cost of your integrity, and drawing you into a morally treacherous landscape from which escape seems nearly impossible. A common historical truth is that the medieval system of manorial mills, being a monopoly, inherently fostered an environment ripe for corruption. Millers had immense power to demand more than was legally owed, leading to widespread practices of bribery, both offering and accepting, extortion, and embezzlement. This was often an unofficial but tolerated aspect of the system, as long as the lord's fixed revenue was met. You're not just able to be corrupt, The system almost demands it of you. If you want to truly profit, it's like being given a license to run the only toll booth for miles. But the unwritten rule is that you should charge triple the official rate. And pocket the difference, and everyone knows it. And if you don't do it, you're considered a fool. Maybe even a threat to the informal economy. Imagine a busy morning at your mill. A wealthy merchant, a man with fine clothes and a swagger that suggests his business flourishes across several manners, approaches with a mule laden with sacks of fine grain, perhaps imported from another region. You begin your assessment, mentally calculating the official multure, which would already be a significant sum. But before you can declare the amount, the merchant leans in, his voice low, a knowing look in his eye. "Master Miller," he begins, "these goods are for a special client. Perhaps we can expedite the process and ensure a particularly fine grind. For a small fee, of course, directly to you?" As he speaks, his hand subtly slides a small, heavy leather pouch across the counter, filled with more silver than the official fee itself. This is a bribe, and it's not an unusual occurrence. You look at the pouch, then at the merchant's expectant face. You could refuse, insist on the full official fee, and make him go through the proper, tedious process of inspection and assessment. But then you'd lose the substantial, untraceable silver in the pouch, and he might just take his business through another, more accommodating miller's territory next time, costing you future revenue. Or even worse, he might spread rumors of your inflexibility. The choice is clear: uphold a vague sense of honesty and lose money, or accept the bribe and enrich yourself, all while making the merchant's life easier. You pick up the pouch, the coins clinking softly, and your face remains impassive as you wave him through with a curt nod. "Next time, bring me a fresh haunch of venison, too." You might say a small, dark joke. It's like being a customs officer, and a fancy car pulls up, and the driver just casually hands you a wad of cash with their passport. Do you take the cash and wave them through, or demand a full inspection and watch them drive off to find a more flexible officer down the road? You're essentially running a private express lane for the rich. This is the seductive allure of temptation. Every day brings opportunities for bribes, for extra charges, for bending the rules in exchange for personal gain. A farmer might offer you a portion of his harvest to declare a lower yield on paper. A fisherman might offer you his finest catch to overlook a few extra fish in his boat because, everything is taxable, even fish for personal consumption. A traveling artisan might offer you a gold coin to bypass the official toll for grinding his specialized materials. These temptations are constant, varied, and often incredibly appealing, especially when you compare the meager official percentage to the enormous sums you can earn through illicit means. A fascinating, yet rarely discussed detail about this corruption is that beyond individual bribes, larger-scale corruption often involved millers colluding with manor officials or even other villagers to manipulate grain assessments for entire harvests, or to hide stolen goods within sacks of flour, creating a vast systemic web of illicit financial gain that extended far beyond the local mill. This means that the petty bribes you accept are just the tip of a massive, submerged iceberg of systemic corruption. You are a small fish in a very, very dirty pond, and the bigger fish are far more powerful and far more ruthless. It's like working at a local branch of a bank, and you find out the entire corporate structure above you is involved in a massive, elaborate money laundering scheme. You're just moving some small change around, but the whole system is rotten, and you're just a cog in the machine. Historians still widely debate whether the feudal lord's tolerance of miller corruption was a calculated risk, a necessary evil to ensure revenue collection in distant manors, or if it gradually eroded the local community's trust and contributed to widespread unrest, suggesting a complex long-term consequence of short-term financial expediency. The effects of this corruption ripple outwards, poisoning not just individual lives, but potentially the very stability of the manorial system. You, on the ground, just see the immediate profit and the immediate danger. Consider the job of a wealthy landowner, perhaps a minor knight or a prosperous freeholder, who has vast fields of grain and numerous dependents. He might approach you not with a paltry bribe, but with a complex proposition, a substantial gift to ensure his grain is consistently undervalued in the official records. Saving him massive sums over the years, and this isn't a one-time thing, it's an ongoing arrangement, a tacit understanding that you will protect his interests in exchange for a continuous stream of illicit income. This kind of arrangement draws you into a deeper web of complicity, making you an active participant in large-scale tax evasion, not just petty extortion. You become an accomplice, bound by mutual interest to powerful, unscrupulous individuals. It's like a powerful tech CEO offering you a consulting fee to make sure their company pays absolutely no taxes for the next decade. And you suddenly find yourself with a surprisingly comfortable, ethically questionable, new income stream. The moral slippery slope is steep and fast. What starts as accepting small gifts quickly escalates to demanding them. You become more brazen, more confident in your ability to extract extra funds. The line between what's legal and what's corrupt blurs until it disappears entirely. Your conscience, already dulled by the contempt of others, becomes even more muted as the allure of wealth takes over. You begin to see every interaction not as a service, but as an opportunity for personal enrichment, a chance to take advantage of someone's desperation or eagerness. This pervasive corruption also means you have to be constantly wary of being double-crossed. The merchant who offered you a bribe might later accuse you of extortion if it suits his purpose, perhaps to avoid a larger dispute with the Lord. The powerful landowner might decide you're no longer useful and arrange for your downfall, accusing you of the very corruption he encouraged. You operate in a world where trust is a liability, and everyone is looking out for themselves. You learn to keep meticulous, hidden records of your illicit dealings, not for official purposes, but as leverage, as insurance against those who might try to expose you. It's like being a spy, but everyone around you is also a spy, and no one can truly be trusted. And your very livelihood, perhaps even your life, depends on it. The temptation to embezzle from the Lord's share itself is also ever present. After all, you collect the money and the grain. Who's truly checking every single measure you could declare a lower sum than you actually collected, siphoning off a portion for yourself before sending the rest up the chain to the bailiff? This is a riskier game, one that could lead to severe punishment if caught, but the potential rewards are immense. The thought nags at you, a constant whisper of even greater wealth, even greater power, just a single dangerous step away. This culture of corruption is not just external, it becomes internalized. You start to think of money as the ultimate measure of worth, the only true source of power and security in a brutal world. The pursuit of wealth becomes an addiction, a relentless drive that overshadows all other concerns. You might neglect your family if they haven't already abandoned you, your health, your few remaining social connections, all in the tireless quest for more. The silver glints in the darkness, a mesmerizing beacon that pulls you further and further away from the light. The fear of exposure is a constant companion. If your corrupt dealings come to light, either through an investigation by a watchful bailiff or a desperate complaint from an aggrieved villager, perhaps one who has nothing left to lose, the consequences could be dire. Imprisonment, severe fines, confiscation of all your property, even public humiliation or physical punishment. This fear adds a sharp edge to every bribe accepted, every illicit deal made. You walk a tightrope, balancing immense personal gain against the constant threat of total ruin. It's like being a high-wire artist, but the wire is covered in grease and someone keeps throwing bananas at you. And the audience actually wants you to fall, hoping you land in a pit of angry villagers. So, as the sun beats down on your mill and the whispers of illicit deals fill the dusty air, you are constantly making choices. Do you take the bribe? Do you demand an extra fee? Do you skim a little off the top? Each decision drags you deeper into the moral mire, reinforcing the corrupt system that birthed your profession. The temptations are too great, the rewards too alluring, and the risks, while present, often seem distant compared to the immediate gratification of more silver and more grain. This environment of bribery, corruption, and temptation truly suck the integrity out of your daily life, leaving you adrift in a morally treacherous landscape, forever stained by the glittering, tainted allure of illicit wealth. You, our medieval miller, are now deeply enmeshed in the moral compromises and social isolation of your profession. You've profited, but you've paid a heavy spiritual price. Yet, there's one last crucial layer of your miserable existence. We must examine the illusion of the Lord's protection. You cling to the idea that the feudal lord, whose wealth you augment and whose monopoly you enforce, will always be there to shield you from the righteous anger of the peasants and the inherent dangers of your trade. But as you'll soon realize, that protection is fickle, conditional, and ultimately an empty promise. A common historical truth is that while feudal lords established mills as lucrative monopolies and nominally protected their millers as valuable assets, the practical extent of this protection was often limited. Lords were primarily concerned with the flow of revenue, and while they would intervene to prevent outright destruction of the mill or the death of a miller that disrupted income, they might tolerate or even implicitly allow minor acts of peasant defiance or violence against millers as a pressure release. Or if it didn't significantly impact their bottom line, you are a tool, and tools, while useful, can be replaced if they break. It's like being a highly paid, but very annoying, security guard for a powerful, ruthless corporation. They'll give you a uniform and a badge, but they might not rush to your aid if a few disgruntled customers decide to express themselves by throwing rotten tomatoes. And you just know they'll prioritize profit over your pristine uniform. Imagine a tense, simmering afternoon at your mill. A group of villagers, perhaps led by a particularly vocal farmer whose family is teetering on the edge of starvation, confronts you. Their accusations are loud, their faces contorted with rage, their frustration palpable. They accuse you of cheating, of stealing, of being a thief of bread. You feel the familiar surge of fear, your eyes darting towards the road leading to the manor house, hoping to spot the Lord's bailiff or a patrolling guard. Suddenly, a small commotion erupts. A stone is thrown, narrowly missing your head. The crowd surges forward, their anger threatening to overwhelm you. And then, you see them. 2 of the Lord's guards, clad in their leather jerkins, their spears glinting in the sun, emerge from the direction of the manor. They hear the shouting, see the agitated crowd. Your heart leaps with a desperate hope. Finally, protection. But their approach is slow, deliberate. They cast a casual glance your way, their expressions unreadable, perhaps even a hint of amusement in their eyes. They don't quicken their pace. They don't draw their weapons. They simply continue their patrol, deliberately giving you enough time to handle the local disturbance yourself. They are a visible symbol of the Lord's power. Yes, but their protection is not immediate, not personal. It's a distant, indifferent shield. It's like being robbed, and the police car just drives by slowly, waves and yells. Good luck with that. We'll get there eventually. This tacit permission for minor violence, this deliberate delay in intervention, serves a purpose for the Lord. Allowing a miller to suffer a few bruises or even a public humiliation can sometimes diffuse wider resentment, preventing larger, more organized peasant revolts. Your personal discomfort is a small price to pay for maintaining manorial stability. You are expendable. A sacrificial lamb in the larger game of feudal control? It's like being a punching bag for a frustrated boxer. You absorb the blows and the crowd cheers. And the coach, the Lord, just nods approvingly, because it means the boxing match, the feudal system, can continue. A fascinating, yet rarely discussed, detail about this illusion is that while millers were legally bound to the Lord's service and theoretically protected, their practical recourse in manorial courts against peasant violence was often difficult. Peasants might claim they were provoked by the miller's dishonesty, and lords wanting to avoid widespread unrest might rule leniently against the peasants or prioritize maintaining social peace over absolute justice for their miller. This means your degree of protection isn't universal. It depends on the Lord's current political calculations, the mood of the peasantry, and how much trouble your plight might cause. You're not just a miller, you're a pawn in a much larger, often deadly political game. And you're on the lowest rung. Historians still widely debate the effectiveness of manorial legal recourse for individual millers who suffered violence or financial losses in the countryside, and whether the bureaucracy and distance from the Lord's direct oversight made justice slow and often unattainable, suggesting that while the laws existed, their practical application was often severely limited. For you and I on the ground, justice feels like a distant concept, a privilege reserved for the truly powerful, not for a despised local agent. You can't just sue someone in small claims court for a bruised ego and a stolen sack of flour. You're more likely to just get more bruises. Consider the job of a scribe in the Lord's manor house, meticulously recording petitions and complaints. You might, in desperation, attempt to file a formal complaint about an assault, hoping for the Lord's justice. You spend hours meticulously detailing the incident, describing the faces, the insults, the physical blows. The scribe listens impassively, takes your statement, and files it away. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months. You hear nothing. No arrests are made, no justice is served. You realize that your petition, like so many others from the locals, has simply disappeared into the vast, indifferent maw of manorial bureaucracy. Your suffering is not a priority. Your complaint is just another piece of parchment in a mountain of similar grievances. It's like sending an email to a giant corporate customer service department and getting an automated reply that says, "Your concerns are very important to us, just not important enough to do anything about." And you just know your email is going straight to the spam folder. This lack of reliable protection fosters a deep sense of vulnerability. You might have the Lord's authority theoretically behind you, but in the immediate, gritty reality of the village, you are largely on your own. You learn to rely on your own wits, your own strength, and your own ruthlessness to survive. The belief that the Lord will always swoop in to save you quickly evaporates, replaced by a chilling understanding that your personal safety is ultimately your own responsibility, and a very precarious one at that. You carry a club, you stay vigilant, and you avoid dark alleys. Why? Because no one else is truly watching out for you. The powerful presence of the Lord's manor, which once felt like an unshakable shield, now feels more like a distant, sometimes indifferent, shadow. The guards are there to maintain general order, to suppress large-scale rebellions, and to ensure the overall flow of grain and coin. They are not your personal bodyguards. They will not chase down every angry farmer or punish every muttered curse. You are left exposed, a lightning rod for the populace's hatred, with only the occasional, often too late, intervention from your supposed protectors. This illusion of protection also extends to your wealth. You might believe that your service to the Lord, your collaboration, will safeguard your ill-gotten gains. But the Lord's law itself could be a double-edged sword. If you were accused of excessive extortion by a powerful knight or a particularly influential group of villagers, or if your actions become too destabilizing, the same feudal system that enabled your wealth could just as easily strip it away. Your property could be confiscated, your family ruined, all under the guise of enforcing justice or manorial custom. You are always at the mercy of larger powers, and your precarious wealth is never truly secure. It's like being a minor gangster who thinks he's untouchable because he works for a big boss. But then the big boss decides you're bad for business and cuts you loose. And suddenly, all your friends disappear. And you realize, with a sickening thud, that those friends were actually just waiting for you to fall. Consider the job of a rebellious peasant leader, secretly organizing acts of defiance against the Lord. They see you, the miller, not just as an individual, but as a crucial component of the Lord's oppressive machinery. Disrupting your collections, sabotaging your mill, or even eliminating you is a direct blow against the feudal system. They are not deterred by the distant threat of the Lord's reprisal. In fact, it fuels their resolve. They might study your movements, observe your routines, calculating the best moment to strike, knowing that if they act quickly, the Lord's response might be too slow to save you. Your perceived Lord's protection is merely a challenge to them, an invitation to demonstrate their defiance in the Lord's weakness. The chilling reality is that you are caught between two worlds, truly belonging to neither. You are rejected by your own people and only conditionally accepted by your feudal masters. This liminal existence means you are vulnerable from all sides, without a true anchor, without genuine loyalty or unwavering protection. You are alone, a solitary target in a sea of resentment, and the only real protection you have is your own cunning and the luck of avoiding the next desperate attack. So, as you walk the muddy lanes of your medieval village, the distant sound of the Lord's hounds baying from the manor might offer a momentary sense of reassurance. But that feeling quickly fades. You know that those guards are not there specifically for you. Their presence is a backdrop, not a shield. The illusion of the Lord's protection is a cruel joke, a whisper of safety that dissolves into the harsh reality of your daily peril. In medieval Europe, relying on that protection truly sucked, leaving you perpetually exposed, always a target, always alone. You, our medieval miller, have navigated the treacherous currents of your despised profession, the suffocating feudal yoke, the ruthless grip of monopoly, the burden of unjust fees, the pervasive social scorn, the peril of violent retribution, the gnawing moral decay, the profound isolation, the constant temptations of corruption, and the hollow promise of the Lord's protection. Now, as the sun truly sets on your grinding existence, we confront the final crushing weight, a legacy of dishonor. This isn't just about what happens to you personally. It's about the indelible stain your profession leaves on history, a testament to how universally loathed your role was, solidifying your place in cultural memory as a symbol of avarice and deceit. Far beyond the muddy lanes of your medieval village, a common historical truth is that the figure of the medieval miller became synonymous with cheating, exploitation, and avarice across various European cultures. They were often depicted as greedy and dishonest in folklore, proverbs, and early literature, solidifying their negative reputation and cementing their place in cultural memory as a byword for unscrupulous business practices. Your job didn't just earn you contemporary hatred, it branded you, and anyone who followed in your footsteps, with a permanent mark of infamy. It's like being the person who invented the concept of the extended car warranty call, but everyone remembers you for it for centuries, even after cars are flying. And you just know your name will be invoked as a warning against scams in future history books. Imagine your name. Perhaps Master Giles or Miller Thomas. Spoken generations later, not with respect or even indifference, but with a sneer, a dismissive wave of the hand. You are remembered not for any personal qualities, any acts of kindness, or any familial ties, but solely for your profession and its associated vices. Your legacy is defined by the extra handfuls of grain you pocketed, the arbitrary fees you imposed, and the faces of the suffering peasants from whom you extracted tribute. You are frozen in time as a symbol of exploitation, a willing participant in the economic subjugation of your own people. Your name, once perhaps associated with a respectable family, is now shorthand for moral depravity. It's like being remembered only for that one time you cut in line at the grocery store, but for all of eternity. And it's taught in ethical philosophy classes. And there's no way to delete the digital footprint. This isn't just a localized phenomenon within your small English village. The negative portrayal of millers was widespread across medieval Europe, from the bustling markets of France to the distant hamlets of Germany. Wherever manorial mills operated, similar figures emerged, earning similar disdain. This means your dishonor isn't confined to your small corner of the world. It's part of a broader, pan-European narrative of exploitation and resentment. You are part of a global phenomenon of hatred, a fascinating, yet rarely discussed, detail about this legacy is that the enduring negative portrayal of millers in popular culture also contributed to a broader societal distrust of figures involved in commodity processing and trade, subtly embedding a skepticism towards those who mediate essential goods, a sentiment that sometimes lingers even in modern consumer perceptions. This means that even today, when someone suspects they're getting less than they paid for at a market, a tiny, almost subconscious echo of the ancient medieval miller resonates in their disdain. You, a historical figure, unwittingly became part of a timeless archetype of the disliked middleman. It's like being a character in a classic nursery rhyme who everyone remembers as the greedy antagonist, and your name becomes synonymous with avarice. And there are no royalties, just endless scorn. Historians still widely debate whether the overwhelmingly negative portrayal of medieval millers in historical sources and literature accurately reflects the average behavior of all individuals in the profession, or if it was an exaggerated stereotype perpetuated by a peasantry resentful of feudal monopolies and economic burdens. Suggesting that some millers might have been more scrupulous than their historical reputation suggests, but their individual conduct was overshadowed by the systemic nature of their role. However, for those living under their thumb, the stereotype was their painful reality. Consider the job of a future historian looking back at medieval England, sifting through ancient texts, manorial records, and fragments of folklore. They piece together the daily lives of the common people, their struggles, their beliefs, and inevitably they encounter the figure of the miller. They read accounts of the people's hatred, the accusations of extortion, the stories of their social ostracization. You are not a hero or even a nuanced character with complex motivations. You are a symbol of oppression, a necessary evil, a figure of scorn. Your story is told as a cautionary tale, a grim reminder of how power can corrupt and how collaboration with an oppressive system can lead to infamy. They don't write ballads about your bravery. They write satirical poems about your dishonesty. The very language used to describe millers in historical accounts is laced with contempt. They are thieves, cheats, greedy wretches. This persistent negative labeling solidifies your place in collective memory as something less than human, an embodiment of avarice. Even if individual acts of kindness or moments of regret ever occurred in your life, they are erased by the sweeping brushstrokes of historical condemnation. Your personal narrative is subsumed by your infamous profession. It's like being a famous athlete who won every championship, but was later exposed for rampant cheating. So no one remembers your skill, just your dishonesty. And there's no Hall of Fame for cheats. This legacy of dishonor extends beyond mere historical texts. It infiltrates religious narratives and popular morality tales, becoming part of the moral fabric of a culture. In the religious texts of the time, those who exploit the poor are condemned, and the miller often embodies this transgression, only gaining salvation through profound repentance and complete restitution. This powerful condemnation ensures that your dishonor isn't just a matter of historical record. It becomes a spiritual lesson, a warning against the corrupting influence of worldly gain. It's like being the stock character of the villain in every morality play told for centuries, and everyone knows exactly who the greedy one is. And it's you. The impact of this long-lasting dishonor is that your actual human experience the nuances of your daily struggles, the pressures that led you to this path. The lack of alternatives are largely forgotten. You are reduced to a caricature, a one-dimensional villain, stripped of your humanity by the weight of historical judgment. The individual decisions, the moments of moral struggle, the fleeting temptations, they all disappear behind the monolithic reputation of the dishonest miller. Your children's children, if they exist and are aware of your past, might carry the stain of your name. Even generations removed, the association with that miller could linger, a shadow over their family legacy. The choices you made for personal gain echo through time, leaving a mark not just on your own life, but on the potential lives of your descendants. It's like having a distant relative who was a notorious swindler, and every time your last name is mentioned, someone brings it up. And there's no witness protection program for historical reputations. So, as the centuries turn into millennia, and the feudal system fades into the annals of time, your figure, the medieval miller, remains. Not as a hero, not as a complex character, but as a chilling reminder of the dark side of power, the perils of collaboration with an unjust system, and the enduring human cost of greed. Your legacy is one of universal disdain, a testament to a job that truly sucked the life, the dignity, and ultimately, the good name from all who dared to pursue it. The echoes of that contempt still reverberate today, ensuring that the awful reality of being a medieval miller remains an infamous chapter in the grand, sleepy story of history. As we gently drift from the echoes of medieval England, let your mind ease into the present moment. Feel the comforting stillness that surrounds you, the soft hum of the night, or perhaps the gentle rhythm of your own breath. The weight of history, the struggles of the past, now recede like distant waves upon a shore. Allow yourself to release any lingering tension, to soften your shoulders, and to gently close your eyes. In this quiet space, there are no burdens, no judgments, only the soothing embrace of slumber. Let the last thoughts of ancient struggles dissolve into the peaceful currents of your mind, guiding you toward a restful sleep. Good night.